Thanks y'all for coming. Really cool event so far. I'm Aaron from Melbourne, all the way from Melbourne, coming to talk to you about sort of real life React deployments. I'm the founder of a company called Bitgenics, and what we're doing is very, very dear to my heart because it's about deployments and sort of Reacts and sort of taking away all of the sort of magic and bullshit that come with sort of React deploying. I'm also a developer evangelist for YAO, the conference that you should all be going to because it's freaking amazing. But yeah, so React deployments for reals. The other title for this talk is the 5 things no one told you about React deployments. And the tagline more is the how do you stop treating your application as if it was a website? Because that's what I see a lot happening inside of the market, is that we treat our sort of React applications just like we did a static web page. And we sort of have to sort of stop doing that and grow up, because we're now building applications, whether you like it or not. Well, I'm sure you like it, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But so I'm going to get a couple things out of the way that I'm not even going to mention, like HTTPS, all the things. Right? It's 2018. SSL certs are free. You should be doing this, period. Right? The other thing I'm not going to sort of gloss over is CDN all the things, because it's 2018 and it's sort of way past. Yeah. This is especially true if you have just HTTPS as all the things. So you want to use CDNs even for your dynamic parts that we're going to be talking about later in this talk, because SSL. Yeah. SSL requires, depending on how you do it, 1 or 2 round trips. And sort of you want to do that to something that's very close to you, so low latency. Yeah, so those 2 are things out of the way. HTTPS all the things and SSL all the things, because it's 2018. And you all know that. So let's go into the sort of real meat of the presentation, which is separating out code and config. And this is one that I've seen sort of done wrong a lot, like a whole lot, where we create bundles for a particular environment, right? So we got our sort of CI set up, and we go like, build a bundle that will deploy to the test environment. And then even worse, at some later date, we're going to go like, that was good. We're now going to build something for our staging environment. And we liked how that was going, so later still, we're going to go, we're going to make a build for production, right? And you're like, how do we know that these things are different, or that they are the same and not different, right? Obviously, they're different because of their sort of configuration. So one of the sort of biggest things, if this is the only thing you take away from this, sort of do this, right? 1 package, all environments. That's it, right? We can't be building packages for specific environments. You build 1 package and you run that through all of your environments. Yeah. So you want the configuration to be inside your environment. Yeah. Whatever that is. Yeah. The other thing that we've been talking about in sort of backend applications for a long, long time, as in since about sort of 2012, 13, it's not that, but it's this whole notion of what we call blue-green deployments. Has anyone sort of heard of blue-green deployments, the term? Luckily, a couple hands, cool. So pictures, I find help explaining this. So we have some kind of load balancer, whatever that is. It sort of directs traffic to sort of 2 or more sort of backends or sort of applications. Yeah. And instead of deploying our new version over this environment, you should basically come to see these environments as needles, right? You don't reuse needles. No one does that anymore, right? We don't reuse environments either. Yeah, that's not how it works. So what we do instead is we get 2 new environments. Yeah. 2 new environments that we're going to deploy our new version on. And the cool thing you can do now is you can go and test, sort of make sure that everything still works. exactly the way you want it to. Yeah. And then, sort of once you've decided that, they are now nice and green, and we now sort of direct all the traffic to these sort of things that we now know to be good. Yes, that's what we call sort of blue-green deployments. It's basically testing in production done right. Yeah, this is not the just ship it and see if it falls over. This is a live new production environment that we know is good, and then we switch over. Yeah. The slightly more advanced version of this is what we call canary deployments. Yeah. Sort of one of the things way back when people were digging sort of coal out of mines, they brought a canary with them, or some other small bird, I would imagine, and they would die of sort of carbon monoxide poisoning before humans did. So yeah, if your canary died, you wanted to get out of there really, really quickly because you didn't have an awful lot of time. And this is the same thing where we deploy to a small percentage of our users, and if that goes well, then we go like, I guess it's good. Yeah, so you can do these sort of staged rollouts. The most important thing that we want to do is we want to switch, we want to separate out deploying from releasing. Yeah, that's sort of the way to think about this. Separating out deployment from releases. So a deploy doesn't mean it's live for all of our users. It means it's just live for us. Yeah, so, geez, I need to shout. Right, let's see if we can get a demo with working with one hand, because I just realized I got a sort of microphone here. Just to the rescue.
I'm a mic stand.
Where is my mirror? All right. So, luckily I came prepared because the interwebs in here are absolutely atrocious. So I'll sort of describe what I've done sort of so far. Here is my actual real live website, bitgenix.io, and it's fine. It says, well, it's got a nice little header, and so what I've done is I've created a new version, and I've deployed. Luckily, I've deployed that before my talk, because it took me about 6 minutes to deploy the 497K. But what we have here, and this is all, by the way, using the platform that I've been built, sort of link, just to sort of show you how it goes, so how it works. So what we now have here is a URL. It's got a lot of sort of shy bits and some stuff. And if we go there, we see this new change, which is sort of Hello React Sydney, which I did especially for you. There we go. Thank you. But all of my users still see the old site, right? Which is a bit boring, isn't it? So we are going to try. I offered some pizzas to the demo gods, so we're going to find out whether I like pizzas very, very quickly. Ooh, this looks good. So screw this, we're going live for this. So what we're now doing is, so I've deployed before, and what we're now doing is see if we can refresh this and release. Hey! All right, that might not be the most professional. Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, easy. All right, now we're going to find out whether I can release it back. Or that I'll be Hello React Sydney for the rest of the evening. Which will be fine with me too. This is my company, yeah. Well, on my live site, yeah. Update the meta description sounds like a much more professional thing to release. All right, it says it's successful.
Yes.
And it is. So that's exactly what I meant with the separation of deployments and releases. Yep, these things are different things, and you should treat them as sort of different things. A deploy is not a release. Yep, that was old us, like last year. This year, it's everything can trigger a deploy. A release is only when we know it's good. Yeah. So, the other thing that we often forget about is good old-fashioned HTTP headers. Right? A lot of what I see sort of people do is we'll just chuck our sort of index HTML on sort of some as sort of a S3 bucket or a Surge or a Netlify or sort of any other sort of CDNs and be done with it. But there's a couple headers in especially that I want you to consider. The obvious one of which is a caching header. Later we're going to be talking about some of the more advanced ways you can deploy things like sort of server-side rendering, and it becomes very important then. But even here, sort of having your stuff cached out on the edge is so very important. Yeah, really, really important. So don't forget, if you have no control over your HTTP headers where you're hosting right now, or you just haven't bothered configuring it, you're losing out on a whole bunch of performance potential. The other one that is really cool is preload, either as an HTTP header, especially as an HTTP header, but also as a sort of meta tag. Because what you can do with preload headers is go sort of browser at some point during the parsing of this document and the CSS and the JavaScript, you're going to run across this particular URL. You'd better start downloading this thing right now. Yeah. Allows you to very, very easily sort of speed up your critical paths. But again, if these sort of URL specific, you want to sort of control over what that is and what that means. And the best one to use is something that's the content security policy. Yeah. If you care about security at all, and hopefully you do, and if you don't, well, just get out, basically. If you care about security at all, this is the header to look at. Like setting up, and it's hard. This particular one is really hard to set up. So do some research because it also allows you to break your application in rather spectacular ways. So you want to invest some time in and sort of figure out what this is. But this is sort of one of those things that you really want to do. It basically allows you to whitelist where you want to load resources from. So you can go, no JavaScript can be executed for sort of these, and these, only be executed for these domains. Yeah. Every script tag on this page, or every style tag, needs to have a particular sort of random value. Yeah. And it really, really protects well against sort of cross-site scripting attacks and a host of other stuff. Yeah. So please don't forget your HTTP headers. They're absolutely vital in both performance and security. All right. The front-end specific stuff, server-side rendering. A lot of people sort of don't. Is there some people here with sort of server-side rendering that first page on the server? There's a couple of people. Yeah. It's got a bit of a bad rap because people say it's really hard, and that's true. It's really easy. It's extremely, and people think it's really easy. You're like, oh, React's got like render to string. How hard could it possibly be? Really hard. and as Jet just said, really hard because it's true. Because you get things like, so where's my data coming from? All right. So luckily, I've been doing quite a bit of work making this rather seamless and sort of really easy to do. So I'm going to sort of, but why would you want a server-side render? So server-side rendering is basically that first hit to your website. Instead of just giving them an empty HTML page with nothing to look at, what you want to do is sort of, because you've got JavaScript, and we can execute Java on the client and on the server these days. It's magic. So what we do is we render that first page and send the HTML instead of just a couple hundred Ks of JavaScript. Yeah. And it's great because that means we can radically reduce what we call our time to first paint, or the term that we're using these days is sort of time to first meaningful paint. So like the first like ads and headers aren't really useful, right? But it's that sort of first hit of actual content that we're interested in. Because yeah, HTML turns out is really sort of fast to send over the wire and sort of lay out by browsers. Another thing that it's really, really good for is SEO. Right? If you're writing a React app that relies on sort of search engine finding your content, you have to be doing SEO. Yeah. And I get this a lot from techies, and they go like, but Google does JavaScript. We're good. I looked at it in the sort of web thingy controls, and it looks fine. You know, like, yeah, sure, but like, how often does Google do it? Do I do it reliably? Do we know?
Do you want to bet your business on it?
and that's basically the question I ask them too. Right? Are you willing to bet your business on it? And the answer to that question should be no, by the way. But yeah, people sort of go, and they're like, Google does it, does Bing, and then everyone always laughs, and you go like, they've got like percentage points market share. Are you willing to throw that away? Yeah? No, you're not. Do you know what penalties Google gives you for the extra time it takes them to sort of load up the JavaScript and things? You don't know. If you rely on search engines to find content that you've written an amazing React app for, you have to be doing server-side rendering. And especially if you care about sharing these URLs, metadata. Right? Because what happens if Facebook or Twitter or Slack or whatever social network you can find goes to one of your deep links? It finds the set of metadata, the one set of metadata in your index.html. Right? There's no way to give sort of URL-specific metadata. So yeah. The other thing that it's really good for is sort of general robustness. A really, really, really big sort of Melbourne-based sort of mature startup that you all know and love, last year accidentally deployed a JavaScript bundle that didn't register. Like, there was a typo in it and it wasn't run and nothing. It took them 2 hours to figure out because the entire the bloody website worked, like just on good old-fashioned HTML. It took them so long because like, what are all these hits doing? We're really, really popular. And then they were like, oh wait, oh shit. All right, and that's sort of when I find out that yeah, their JavaScript bundle, well, there was a typo in there, and yeah, it took like an hour to figure this out because everything just worked. Yeah. Jeez. Fine, one more demo. My lovely assistant. I'm really glad he sort of dressed up the part for this, just for me. All right. So let's just check that it is running. So yeah, we wrote a application. Let me sort of phrase it up and just go. Let me just go look for Begenics, the repo, and we submit, and then we pray to the demo gods. Yes, interwebs. All right. So stupid little app that sort of does the fetching of repositories. But if we go to view page source, what we have, this is sort of all of the data. But one of the challenges, and this is like an entire talk on its own, the challenges of server-side rendering, because you have to have the data both on the server and the client to do sort of the same things. So let's scroll through all of my data, because GitHub sends back a lot of data. And here we have good old-fashioned HTML. Yeah, that crawlers can index. It has, where's my, here. If you can't read it, you'll have to believe me. because I was afraid that would happen. Lost my position. But this is a meta tag with the title in it. Right. Something you can also see up here in the editors bar. So we have our set of meta tags that are the same for all of these sort of pages. So if someone crawls your site, you'll get back the metadata that's based on the data that sort of came back. Yeah. And now to my favorite. This is the thing I love most, right? Because what you can't read in here is the tick says disable JavaScript. Yeah. Let me just go and submit.
Nice.
What's your GitHub?
Just over JSSTO.
Like exactly as your name is?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, unique.
So let's see. That's woo. Right. So this is not stage A-frame. Go and check it out. I'm sure it's awesome. All right. All right, which brings me to the sort of final stage of this sort of presentation, and it's one of the things I'm sort of rather excited about as well. Because if you have a React app that is small and it's like a page or two and it's okay, it's great, but then you sort of add another page and another tab and another thing, and before you know it, like the thing's a couple hundred K, like zipped, and that's where things get sort of annoying. So there's this sort of fifth sort of thing I want you to sort of start thinking about is code splitting, because what you want on that first download is to only give people the JavaScript that they need for that page, because before any user can interact with the page that you're on, they have to have downloaded all of your JavaScript and all of your CSS. They have to have parsed all of it, and they have to have sort of executed all of your JavaScript before the user can do anything on this sort of page. Yeah. So if sort of the thing you care about is that sort of time to interactive, how do we keep that as low as we possibly can? So yeah, these and sort of this is what makes it really, really cool in combination with server-side rendering. Is what we can now do is we can give people the exact bits of JavaScript that they need only for this page and nothing else. Yeah, because we've rendered this thing on the server, so the server knows exactly what JavaScript it needs and doesn't need. And it's even awesomer with things like service workers. Right? So we've stripped down exactly what we need for this particular deployment to this page, and then we have a service worker that goes like, "Oh, right. So what's left?" Right? And in the background, while they're looking at this page, service workers are going to download all of the other pieces of JavaScript, all the other chunks, so that they're available as soon as people start navigating from the page that you're on. Yeah. So code splitting, server-side rendering, service workers are absolutely amazing for sort of performant React deployments. Yeah. All right. Fine. Jeez. Stop shouting. Last one, I promise, Jess.
Thank you.
So. All right. So, this is the bit that gets really, really tricky. Luckily, I've been able to sort of slim this down quite a bit. So what we have here is a standard React Router v3 sort of routing, and what we're going to be doing is in this particular case we're going to split our routes based on split our code based on routes. Yeah, so we're going to have one chunk per route that we're going to be having. And so how do we do that? This. Can people read it in the back? Are we okay in the back? Yeah. All right, cool. We're using a library here called React Loadable, which you should totally check out because James Cowell, who worked for you for a bit, wasn't he? He's left the country, unfortunately. But he wrote a really cool utility that sort of does a lot of this heavy lifting. And basically, we create a loading component, which is a bit basic. Don't do this in a real application. But it's great for sort of demos. And basically what we do is we create, instead of importing app, I was toying with some stuff here, but I'll use this example. Yeah, like create a new loadable, which has a function that imports. This is a magic, and it's truly magic, comment for Webpack that tells you what the name of this chunk should be. And then we just import it, just like we would in the other example. Right, so here we just went import profile. We'll just use the dynamic imports. And then we use it exactly the same. Yeah. That is if you're using Link. If you're not using Link, there's a lot of Webpack magic, Babel magic, and I'm sure some other magic involved. But it's not too bad. But what we can do then, if we built that, where did I put it? This is the result of that build. Right? So what we have here is like the repo chunk, and sort of a vendor thing, which is sort of all the shared code. There's a profile chunk, and there's a teeny tiny app chunk, which does nothing because it's one tiny React component. But this is exactly the sort of stuff you want to do. Yeah. I also included moment.js to show you why you don't want to do that. Actually, there's sort of ways now where that's made it slightly easier. But yeah, if you naively import moments.js, that's what it does to you. Shit tons. And here's the other thing. If you start to do this, the other thing you want to be aware of is, for example, I'll sort of do it with my cursor. We've got like sort of a loader.css and the loader.css. So you also want to be a little bit smart about sort of configuring these things to make sure you don't get an awful lot of duplicated code into sort of multiple bundles. But the new stuff Webpack's been doing has been really cool. But yeah, if you've never looked at your bundle size in one of these sort of web analyzers, and there's about sort of 3 or 4 good ones, so just Google for one and sort of use that. If you've never seen your bundle size this way, boy, are you in for a surprise. Like, what the hell's that doing there? Yep. All right, so that's basically sort of React deployments. It is HTTP has all the things and CDN all the things, but you knew that, right? Separating out your config and your code. Yeah, we can't be making bundles for an environment anymore. Right? It's just too risky. It's too you are basically one deploy away from deploying your test environment into production. Yeah. And I may or may not have done that. We'll never know. We'll never know. We'll never know. Yeah. So don't be that guy. So yeah, done to that. The thing you also want to do is blue-green deployments. Yeah. Don't reuse your environments. Yeah. Build a new one, deploy them there. make sure you have that ability. Yeah. You want to sort of be very careful about your HTTP headers. There's some awesome, cool stuff you can do with them. Make sure you do them. You want a server-side render, and you want a code split. And if you want to do, let me see if I can go back to Keynote. And if you want to do any of that easily, come chat to me, because I'll sort of build a platform that does most of this stuff. Not for free, but really, really easily. All right. Thank you.